For the Leadville Trail 100, ideally, your bike components, and we're talking about the stuff that wears out regularly, should be nice and fresh for race day. Tires, sealant, chain, cassettes, cables, all that stuff that needs a regular replacement. It is best if you go to the start line with that stuff recently replaced.
Now, note that Hottie said recently and not the night before. I like to have a handful of shorter rides on any piece of equipment before it sees the starting line. For example, I just rode up and down the power line because I am in Leadville now with brand new Shimano brake pads on my bike. That way I know that they are ready to go, they're fresh, and it gives me a couple of weeks for everything to tow in and be just perfect.
Now, one way to be sure your replacement parts run smoothly is to stick with OEM stuff when you can. And our friends at Shimano do a great job of having on hand the stuff you need to help your shifters keep shifting and your brakes keep braking.
Yep, like I was just mentioning a moment ago, I like to head into Leadville with fresh brake pads, fresh chain I just put on my bike, to just keep things safe. I really like for my brakes to go with the resin compound. Has really nice quiet braking, and it is perfect for Leadville's usually dry conditions, although it did rain on me today. If you are expecting extreme conditions, then Shimano does make a longer lasting metal compound too.
This is also a good time to get a brake bleed, and Shimano has bleed kits and mineral oil to get that job done, or simply go to your local bike shop and they're sure to have a Shimano kit and supplies. You can find all of Shimano's OEM replacement parts at bike.shimano.com.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Shimano. Find them at bike.shimano.com. It is Season 5, Episode 21 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest, hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I am Michael Houghton, Hottie to most.
And I am Fatty and am at 10,200 feet. For me and for a lot of us, the Leadville countdown clock has started, and our countdown to seeing you is also underway. Our group ride is all set to go, and we're excited to see you there.
Here are the details. Thursday morning, August 11th at 9 a.m., we'll meet you at the Ice Palace Park in Leadville. We'll saddle up there right out of town, partway up Keevens, the first mile of it, where there's that sharp left turn. You all know it. We'll then flip around and return to town via the boulevard. We're going to keep a chill pace to this whole ride, remember? Not trying to wear out our legs 2 days before the race. When you're back, the feed will be on hand with some thank yous for supporting the show. And if you're one of the first 100 people to sign up for this little ditty, well, we're going to have a custom water bottle printed out for you with your name and target time for the race printed right on that bottle. Thank you to the feed for doing this, by the way. Really big of them. Just take a moment. Go to the leadville.fm/group ride website and fill out a quick form.
Yep, I have already done that, and I put 8:59 as my target time. Also, I have brought 2 big boxes full of goodies with me from Utah to Leadville from our good friends at DNA. And they've given me many t-shirts to hand out, many musette bags, socks, lots of socks from their Sock of the Month Club, and some very cool water bottles from DNA. We're going to get you all set up so you have the bottles you need right at the starting line. It's going to be a lot of fun to ride together and some pretty cool swag to hand out too. One last note on that. Like everywhere in Leadville, parking is really limited. If you can ride your bike to the park, please do. Mark your calendars for Thursday, 9 a.m. Google Ice Palace Park in Leadville for the location. And one more time, go to get your free personalized bottle at leadville.fm/group ride.
This is a special edition of our show, a bonus interview episode. And the build up here is pretty simple, folks. Our guest is Ken Chlouber. Enough said. One thing about us cyclists, Fatty, is we can be hard to buy for. Like, we're a pretty particular bunch when it comes to our cycling gear, especially clothes. And this puts the person wanting to buy something kind of in a no-win situation. But there are some opportunities for the savvy shopper, and it starts with them knowing one of our favorite URLs. It is dnacycling.com.
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite gift-getting sites. On that site, especially on the accessories page, there are some can't-miss items, even when buying for the pickiest of cyclists, which is basically all of us, right? If the buyer knows the rider's sizing, a black pair of bibs will probably score you some points. It is just a matter of the cyclist and whether they get along with the chamois in those shorts, and chances are with DNA bibs, they will.
But we say dig a little more on that DNA site. Again, you'll need to know the sizing of the rider you're buying for, but socks are a safe bet as long as you stick with a safe color like black. You could also sign up for the birthday rider, for instance. You could sign them up for the Sock of the Month Club. But again, there could be some level of rejection because, we're picky. T-shirts on the DNA site and on the Thread and Spoke site are also a good choice. DNA has a buff. Those things are great too. And they have cycling caps, also a safe choice.
I am going to underscore what you said about the Sock of the Month Club, Hottie. I actually do that for Lisa. She now has like 2 drawers full of socks. There has not been a month yet where she has gotten the socks and said, I don't like these. So picky cyclists definitely do like those. If you want to play it safe, though, DNA has a gift card. It enables the buyer to pass the buck, both figuratively and literally. For everything we mentioned, it is dnacycling.com. It is the same place. You get a custom kit going. And for t-shirts, it's thread and spoke.com.
Our guest this show is really a no-brainer. His first name is Cole, and his last name is Chlouber, and Chlouber equals Leadville. Now, most of us knew about Cole, but last year we really got to know him when his duties as a race host were quadrupled when his dad ended up in the hospital a few days before the Mountain Bike 100.
Yeah, Cole has had a front row seat to the growth of the Leadville series, and now he finds himself deeply involved with how the races are run and how they are promoted. Cole has an official marketing position with Lifetime, but it is not hard to envision Cole as the man who will take over those shotgun duties and become the face and voice of those races. So we thought it was a good idea to get to know Cole on a little bit deeper level and share his story with you.
All right, Cole Chlouber. Hey, thanks for being on the Leadville Trail 100 Mountain Bike Podcast. And why wouldn't we have a Chlouber, specifically Cole Chlouber, on a podcast we call the Leadville Trail 100 Mountain Bike Podcast? I mean, for goodness sakes, right? This is all about what the Chloubers did, how they rescued a town, how they got some races going, and specifically the one we love so much and the one Fatty and I invented a podcast about, the Trail 100 Mountain Bike Podcast. Cole, first of all, I want to say something on behalf of me, on behalf of Fatty, and I think on behalf of a lot of people who were there in 2021, and that is thanks. Thanks for what you did, especially last year, filling in for Dad. Like, that was a moment that was dropped on your head. It was dropped on all of us. First of all, what would happen to Ken, that was a tough one. It was a tough moment. I definitely think it affected the overall tone of what was going on in Leadville that weekend, but you stepped up and did great for us and filled in at the racers meeting and the awards and Sunday's events and the shotgun blast and all of it. So thank you for doing that. I mean, that must have been obviously a very tough couple of weeks for you and your family.
Well, thank you very much, Hottie, and thank you, Eldon and Hottie, both for having me on today. It's a pleasure. Yes, it absolutely was a very heavy moment. I guess it felt maybe a little safer to me because I knew the hands my dad was in by the point we were where we had gotten to. And, I felt good about that. The one thing we didn't want to leave in the lurch, of course, was our Leadville family. And while this is my dad's baby and my dad's creation, absolutely having grown up with it, I reference it sometimes like a baby brother, but really more like a parent. It really, the stepping up to the plate on that, sometimes we have to dig deep, and it was time for us to do that, and it worked out quite well. But thank you very much for the accolades on that.
And following up with that, How is Ken? How is your dad doing?
He's great. So he's fighting a little bit of a balance issue, but he's making a lot of progress since the time of the blood clots. He's even gotten a new shoulder. So, he's really, really been ornery and really been putting himself back together all at the same time. Mary Lee's also gotten a couple knees since we spoke last year. So everybody's on the mend and doing better by the day.
So the shoulder, did that come from the bull riding?
It did, yeah. Don't start riding bulls at age 68. It's not going to work out very well for you. I can promise you that.
Ride mountain bikes instead. It's much better for you. Yeah, you can still fall, but ride mountain bikes. How about the shotgun? Who has the shotgun this year?
Well, I'm hoping to give all those duties back to my dad this year. Like you said, it was a heavy moment last year. I'm very thankful to have my father here. I'm very excited that he will get to redeliver these duties this year, and I won't have to shoot the shotgun and scurry back into my corral. I can just be placed and ready to go.
That is a story that is probably worth telling. Not everyone will necessarily have in their heads the picture of the double duty that you were doing at that moment. So tell us about the starting line moment last year.
Well, it was pretty heavy for me, yes, because they said, Tamara said, you're going to shoot the shotgun and then you're going to get in your corral. And for a second, I got a little lump in my throat, but I thought, well, this is how this all started. Dad would shoot that shotgun and then he'd file into the end of the runners and off he'd go. That was, then eventually we had Mayor Bud Elliott do it. And, the gun kept hurting him. I thought we were going to have to take those duties back with my father. But that's kind of how it all began. And it felt oddly natural as that took place.
That is a cool full circle moment. It really is. So let's go to now and this year. There's a lot of changes that we've talked about in recent episodes of the show. Last year, the wave starts and the course changes. And this year, with additional wave starts, the race is changing. How do you feel about that? And then tell us, what are the changes that you think are most interesting, ones that maybe you have qualms about or excitement about?
Well, I feel great about them all, let me tell you. And actually, so does Ken. So does my dad. Some of it has had growing pains to get to where we are. What we're trying to do with Lifetime and what the difference with Ken, it's a very large difference. When Ken was in charge and Mary Lee was race director, every single decision could lie on Ken. That way, if there was a problem, we knew where the buck stopped. And with Lifetime, there's just a lot more to manage. More people are in charge of more pieces. We, as a family, just felt that it was time that the race had kind of outgrown what we could do. And that's how it ended up in the hands of Lifetime, and more specifically, Barama Crotty. Barama's definitely very invested in the community and is every bit as invested today. The difference is, we made a huge change we added 3 corrals. So now there's 3 white corrals. And that's still a little confusing because there's 3 white corrals. The real takeaway there is there are 9 corrals. We're going to let them go at 2.5 minutes apiece. That's going to give all our athletes, hopefully, a similar experience as we can provide. And that's just the bottom line of what we're trying to do. The race has never changed on its moral. If you believe in you, we believe in you, and we want you to come out and race with us. We want you to be a part of our family, and we want to see you at Christmas too. But the difference there is size, right? And you're right, things are changing. The corrals are going to offer this sort of stabilization, we hope. Everybody wants to be in the front, including myself. That's not going to happen. That's just something we're all going to have to grow toward. We've extended the cutoffs, to a proper 20 minutes over the whole time. Last year, we did have a little bobble at an aid station where we were probably a little tight. We want to make sure that doesn't happen this year. And then the biggest change, of course, and the one I think I'm absolutely most excited about, is getting buckles in the chute. Now, this is definitely a dramatic change. We're going to do awards after, but the same night. In the run, we do buckles with the awards. It's just, we're twice the size, the manageability of this. But the biggest reason we've made this change, it has been year over year the number one complaint of our Leadville family, you the racer. Everybody is saying they have these obligations. They've been away from home. When my dad and I would discuss it, he said, the goal of the race is to stay overnight. And I said, well, Dad, you did that. They stayed overnight all these nights prior. And, we see a lot of value that it will be kind of similar to that run. If the bikers are a little concerned about how tired they might be, I got to tell you, we've been doing awards 2 years after that run for, 40 years, and they come alive when they get that award. So I think we'll be okay there. But there's really nothing I'm not excited about. I think the future looks real bright. Oh, I didn't address the change with the sweatshirts. I guess, if I could have my way, I'd love to have that same day. The process there is one that just can't be as stabilized as the past. We used to hand press those numbers on ourselves through the night to get them ready for everybody the next day. We do that in the run as well. And today the scale just isn't there. We're allowed to have too many family members doing the race. And when we have that many racers, it just has not been the best experience. So the bigger thing, is like on Saturday, when you're at that speech last year, it's just so powerful and you can really feel that energy. When you go on Sunday, it was pretty scaled back and, a lot of people had already taken off and, that's not the experience we want to give you. So we're trying to do our best to correct that, and I'm really excited about the new plan.
Folks, if you want to hear all the fine details about the changes that are coming to the race this year, check out our episode 18 in your feed. There's, everything that Cole has talked about, plus some more is in there. So again, if you want updates on the corrals, on awards, and on the start, moving on to Harrison and the shuttles and all of that, there's plenty of that there, as well on the Leadville Race Series site. All that material is there too.
A solid hour of nerding out.
Yeah. Yeah, because we want to have a deeper talk with Cole here about, the Leadville family, about Leadville, about his life with Leadville. And so we're going to leave all that minutia to Ryan and the team with Lifetime too to go over for us, because we have some other topics here we want to cover with Mr. Chlouber. Geez, Cole, you've seen a lot of changes come to this race, maybe more than any other person. But tell us kind of how it started for you. Like, what were some of your first exposures to start lines, and this start line in particular?
How old were you when you saw the race for the first time? The running race, the first Leadville 100.
I was 9. 8 as a lot of these conversations were taking place. And, what I knew of my dad, what I knew of Ken Chlouber, was he was a badass hard rock miner. Also, what I knew of him was he was really into these burro races. And so I was already getting drug around to like a 9-city circuit of these burro races, which is a Colorado pastime tradition. And everybody wonders why. I can clear that up quick and easy. Like in Leadville, if Eldon and I were going for some gold up in the hills and we both found it, well, then our eyes would light up, we'd look at each other, and we'd race our donkeys straight down into town to the assay office, and whoever got there first was getting that claim. Well, when my dad and mom moved to Leadville in 76, my dad was maybe a little more out of shape. I mean, he has kind of that linebacker figure anyway. And I think he was running across to the library, which Eldon, as you know, is just a couple blocks from our house. And he was too winded to make it back. And as he was coming back, he saw this burro race going on. And, kind of went over the avenue to see what was going on and got filled in from some of the locals and thought that looked like a pretty star power event for him. And he made it a goal. Now, Mary Lee was also a burro racer at the time. And my dad, I think, spent 32 years as a burro racer. I think Mary Lee spent at least a good 15 or 17 years herself as a very serious burro racer. But at this time, town's booming. Miners are making a great wage. We're doing these burro races, and I'm playing in the dirt, screwing around at all of them. And then just all of a sudden, I remember that came to a stop, and it was more near Christmas. I remember I'd asked for this, ghetto blaster and a skateboard. My dad mainly remembers the skateboard, and, I remember where they hid the presents and seeing one of them go back. And I knew I wasn't bad, and, so I'm kind of questioning that. But then it really kind of dawns on me that it shaped the town's in, the shape the people are in. This is bigger than us. This isn't just the Chloubers. This is all Leadville. And Mary Lee, she's a travel agent. There's not going to be anybody to travel for her to be an agent. It's everybody, the drugstore, everybody. And, it got real serious. And I don't remember a long period of that seriousness. My dad and mom were always real good to try to protect me from that. I remember being involved in more of some heated meetings, say between, dad and that, first medical director right before Perna took up the action of being our medical director. I do remember a lot of that. And just as soon as I remember the despair starting to set in, I remember having to be busy helping dad with the course. But it was, now all of a sudden, I didn't know about this job thing, but he had me running through the woods with this orange, baseball field wheel to calculate the mileage of the course. And he was rewarding me with Legos. So somehow, I thought, well, he's rewarding. I didn't know he still didn't have money. I knew Legos were starting to come in. And then kind of coinciding with that began his political career. So he knew something had to change for Leadville, or we were going to become the ghost town of Winfield that we run that 100-mile race out to. But he also knew a bigger thing. If he didn't have income, he wasn't going to be able to keep us there. And so almost, he was county commissioner more as he felt the need to give back. And that's a time I was probably a little young to understand. But he ran for the state house, state representative, against a 12-year incumbent, Schumacher, who was a Democrat out in the farmlands of Colorado and very popular with that group of people. All I remember is we would go door to door. If we weren't doing something for the race in the summer, we were at a parade in the summer or going door to door through the winter trying to get him elected. And, he knows that grit, gut, and determination world. So he'd just make sure I was fully armed with that too. And he'd send me out door to door with him and my mom. And we'd have Mary Lee and her late daughter, God rest her soul, Megan, out there with us. And it just would so turned out that myself or Megan would knock on a fair number of, paper or radio outlets, and they'd see these cute little kids. I mean, more Megan, and they'd give us some airtime. And that was just like Leadville has its magic. That was kind of a magical time where, both my father found this other career and then found this whole other entity to have as a career beyond that, being the Leadville Trail 100.
Now, I mean, you have a lot of stories to tell. I mean, and that kind of covers the early era. You've also, I mean, I think you've seen almost every possible perspective on this race. I mean, think of the roles that you've played with this race. Yeah, obviously, you were a little kid with a race, marking the race in its earliest incarnations. You have been, I know that you used to act as a trail sweep for the race. You have been you've run the running race. I know you have ridden the race. How many times have you ridden the race?
So I'm finally hitting 10, Fatty.
Is 10 this year?
Yes.
How many of them have been single speed?
I think 3 that counted. I folded over a ring one year. How many single speed have you had? I was thinking about that the other day too, but you've got me
7 or 8.
Yeah, I was going to say you've got at least double what I've got.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be worth looking up for sure. But I'm interested in the more modern piece of that now that you are, of course, now you're in staff and you are managing part of the business of the race. I think that in a way you are the race's story and legacy owner at one point. How has your race perspective evolved?
Oh boy, quite a bit. I mean, I think that as a racer, it's even changed quite a bit. And I really felt that more last year. When I came onto the scene, I was, especially the bike scene, but either one of them, far too cocky seeing my dad be so successful or all these other people, quite frankly. I thought it'd just be a walk in the park. And I found out very quickly at age 21 and 22 and, the run and then the bike, yeah, no, it's just not going to happen. It drove me away from athletics for a while. I gained a lot of good values of race perspective during that time. That's really the time that I did the sweep on the bike, on the four-wheeler. And that is where I learned probably the most from you, my Leadville Trail 100 family. I've told this story before in public in Leadville. It's always important to get out. I was a high school runner, a collegiate runner. I had a chip on my shoulder. I thought everything I did didn't stink and everything everybody else did. And being on the back of that four-wheeler, it was humbling. In fact, my first experience with the bike race was having all these big names come to town. One was Will Gagan and John Stamstead, and they're both Ohio buddies. And here you have Will Gagan that's more that Norba pro, and John that's experimenting and all these things pretty much beyond all mountain bikers. Road cyclists are dabbling in like race across America and race across Australia, which he gets involved with. But, then when we find ourselves up on top of Columbine in that first bike race, well, heck, there's Will Gagan. He's sitting in the tent, dropped out. And, I'm just like, what the heck? And, okay, then now I'm on the four-wheeler. I'm doing sweep. And I'm always following, the bigger person, the shorter person, the person that, whatever it is, it's the person that, quote unquote, shouldn't be there. And that's where life started teaching me stuff. Because every time we get to an aid station, there's another guy that looks like myself or Will Gagan dropped out. And then we get to the next aid station and there's a handful. And the next, there's 2 handfuls. But that person I'm following on that four-wheeler, they won't quit. I mean, you could do anything in your power to break them, and you're not gonna. And boy, is that a humbling life lesson for somebody that thinks they're so fit and athletic. Boy, that's the story of life, right? And so I love that I was able to finally receive that message. That I'm most ashamed of that, my attitude back then. But that has really been what's taught me of how to teach our family members going forward, or what that real value of continuing on is. And the people that are tuning in for the lessons, they're hearing it, but they're usually the ones that are teaching that to me.
I was having that exact lesson taught to me again last weekend when I was racing the Crusher and the Tusher. I don't know if you have done that race, another in the Lifetime family.
I haven't. I wish I could get out there.
It is a different kind of race, but with a similar kind of intensity. I don't think there's a better predictor of how you're going to do in Leadville than the Crusher and the Tusher. And it was hot and I was having a hard day. And I thought, I had the distinct thought as I was struggling up the Col de Crush, which is its signature climb, kind of like the way the power line is for Leadville. I was thinking, I got to talk to Cole about this. Yeah, I knew we were going to be talking this week, and I was thinking the race, both of these races are about digging way deeper than you have any right to dig. And it is super easy. And I think we do this to an extent too much in this podcast. We get into the mechanics of it and the details of, tires and dropper posts and all of the things, when this is a race that really is about soul, right? About gutting it out. And that all the perfect equipment and training and nutrition and all of that matter and will help, but they won't get you to the finish line, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you get to that line in some of these races and both are won, it really is going to change your life.
That red carpet is, I don't know anyone who doesn't cry when they get across that thing, right? If you're a hard person, if it doesn't affect you at a deep emotional level, because it is something that you earn in a big way. So yeah, this is a prescriptive show. We like to talk about how to do it, and we love to give people the advice we can. But honestly, I mean, what we are talking about right now, about, the guys and gals who look like they shouldn't be able to finish this thing do, because it matters more than practically anything else, right? It's the dig deep mentality that Leadville teaches you. So yeah, it's, those are the stories that I love to hear. And I understand that you are actually working on a book about the race's history and your dad's involvement and your perspective, your view into the whole thing.
As I've had to deal with my father aging, and I mean, he is my rock star, my rock, my everything. And it's been difficult to see him, with the balance issues. It's obviously not having anything to do with his mental ability. But I guess in reflection and being a bit too personal, it really reminds me of just before we lost his brother, the first time I spoke in 2012 at the running race, which you all didn't experience. My dad's brother passed between the running race and the biking race, and he went out there. But they moved similar at the time my uncle kind of passed. And that's for very different reasons, right? My dad's not nearly in the situation, but it really gave me an awakening of, how I thought he has definitely put Leadville on the map. But I definitely thought somebody would write a book about him by this time, or, a few things like that. And so talked a little bit with McDougall about that, the author of Born to Run, who's a huge fan of our family, and we're just the hugest fan of his family. And boy, has he also put Leadville on the map. But, this was 2019, and he said, hey, it's kind of not my gig. Really just don't have the freedoms I need for that. And it didn't make sense to me then. Boy, does it ever make sense to me now. So right away, the book's about more than that. So pretty sure the title is going to be Grit, Guts, and Determination, and something always has a bigger title below that for me right now. It feels like it might be my tale of a cowboy, 100 miles of dirt, a town so magical they had to save it. But that's a little up in the air.
That's enough for both the front and back cover, man.
Yes, it is. Well, Born to Run, it's like Born to Run, and then it's like this story about a magical tribe in this race, and same thing. So, if it's good for McDougall, I think it's good for me. I'm going to give it a go. But in doing the book, it did bring out a lot of things, and it quickly became, it's a whole different angle just even being through my eyes. And now the book's been a little bit delayed. I was working with another author to help me do some history pieces, and that kind of just didn't work out, and I've got to evaluate the direction I think is best for the project. But we're still working on it. It'll just probably be after race season, and I was hoping to be a little more concluded. With all this also is what got me to start the Grit, Guts, and Determination podcast for the brand. And, we couldn't be more thankful for the work you guys are doing. It's definitely the nuts, bolts, and soup that everybody needs. What I'm trying to do is still the same kind of thing, right? It's much so on both sides. There's so many stories, and there's so many of these runners and bikers at this point have raised me like they are my family members, like they are my parents. And that's this whole reason more why I refer, even though I'm older than the run, and, it's kind of this baby brother that I've supported. I've gotten so many parental roles come at me out of that, and I couldn't be more thankful. But it's those stories that I think there's this huge stewardship to tell, and I really think that's kind of something I need to do. And I think I have just been lucky enough to be surrounded by this magic this whole time. And it's, if God's given me anything, I have this ability to recall pretty much useless crap all the time. But as it relates to the Leadville Trail 100, it allows me, and then the Leadville Race Series, it allows me to recall a lot of neat stories I need to chase down. And then, we're pairing those with these newer stories. Well, that's the same thing I'm trying to do with this book. And I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler alert. The magical Leadville, while nobody can completely define it, it's you. It's those that have come, that Leadville has found, and you can't help but go back. And a lot of them have even made it their residence. Boy, is that special. And I'm the biggest role, the biggest freedom, lifetime, Leadville, my father, everybody's given me is the ability to tell those stories.
We have more coming up with Cole in a second, but we wanted to take a quick time out to talk about Envy. One thing that has become clear about this company, and that is, over the years, they've developed products that meet very specific needs, whether that be mountain, road, or gravel. The one area where we see some crossover is in stems. I talked with Envy's Neil Shirley to learn a little bit about how to pick out an Envy stem. There's the M6 stem. Very familiar with that. But I am someone who likes a little bit, I like to be a little bit flatter when I ride. And so I'm still riding with the road stem, the 100 millimeter road stem. Is that a problem for the Leadville Racer?
No, not at all. I mean, really, we make our stems in 35, 50, and 65 millimeters in length, and mountain stems. And then for the riders that really want that longer setup, that's our road stems are perfect for that. They're torsionally stiff. There's not any issue with that. A little different aesthetic than, it's a round stem versus a boxier stem of the mountain bike. But no, I mean, there's with our professional cross country riders, there's always a mix of if they're running a mountain stem or a road stem, and in terms of performance, you're just not going to be any difference.
In terms of strength, just as good.
Yeah. I mean, they pass the same testing standards, and never an issue there.
And I second that notion from Neil. I've used the NV quote unquote road carbon stem on a gravel bike and a mountain bike, and actually, I've never used it on a road bike, so there. Totally works fine, though. To see the entire inventory of Envy stems, go to Envy. That's ENVE.com. All right, back with Cole. That's C-O-L-E, Chlouber. I've often thought about, Cole, what it might be like to stand in your place and, as your father does get older and you find yourself taking more of a role, like how you step forward and do that, right? Like, because it's his race and he started it and it's his face on the race and those are his slogans that we all love and it's his shotgun, but you're going to be called upon, obviously, to do more. So tell us, how are you like your dad, and then how are you much different?
Boy, that's a great question, Hottie. I'm like him because that rough and tough cowboy raised me, and he raised me with his morals, and he definitely taught me that, people are going to be smarter and they're going to be better looking, but I need to sit there and do the hardest work. And if I do that like he did, it's going to pay off. And I think that value or that simplicity, that follows pretty heavy through a lot of my life. We all have a choice. I could tell my dad to pound sand, or he could not be a good dad, either one, and those seem unimaginable. So, from an early age, he put me to work, and I did it. He also did things like make sure I didn't have an actual day job when I was a child, so I could enjoy a lot of things. So it sounds, very tough, but, it's that work ethic, it's that Leadville grit. That's the biggest thing I think we have in common, that just knowing how to get in motion and move forward when the times are down, the chips are down. And when I think that I've proven that's the biggest thing I've taken from his character, being an adult doing these races. There's quite a change from when I was an adolescent trying to do them. And there's just no question. The question's how sometimes. Sometimes you break a toe, certain things, and you got to figure out how am I going to move forward. Sometimes it's a folded chain ring and you don't. But that's the biggest similarity. The difference is just, I am not that cowboy he is. I have a little more of that city cravings or polishings than he might. And I think that's really, he was always so great at the operations. He was also a pretty good genius at the marketing, but Mary Lee was good at that. I love, that marketing side. I love creating content. I love creating content, whether it's writing, whether it's a podcast, whatever it may be. That's definitely something that he enjoyed, just creating the race itself, which I wouldn't say he enjoyed that. That was pretty hard. And then he's just a master of the other pieces of it. So I think we're very different there. I think that's Tamara would definitely have a similarity to him as that kind of front of the race figure, even though she's a race director and, Mary Lee was our race director. He was always our founder. I think that both of us differently feel that stewardship about Leadville and how we tell that story. And I think that's kind of neat, getting to see how I start to evolve more toward his role like that. Like I said, this year, he's going to be given that speech. But the more I give that speech, the more it does also involve a little more of my story and a little more of, my coming to be with the race and what you, our family members, mean to me directly. It's been very neat. It's been very gray. And just, quite frankly, I hope it remains gray forever. My dad lives forever. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. So, they're starting to work me in.
Yeah, father-son relationships are both the greatest things ever and the most complicated at times too. Like, right? I mean,
Oh, for sure.
My father and I were, he was my hero growing up. I was 9, and he'd take me to baseball games, and he was the guy I said, okay, he's going to show me the way to do things and the right things to do. But then there are moments when it gets tumultuous and tough and you don't understand each other and you wonder if you'll ever be like him. And then you get older and then you're going, oh, I really am somewhat like him. I'm different, but I'm like him.
Oh, yes. We're at 100% alike mentally. We don't talk about it a lot, but, I can't imagine the difficulty for him. He really lives for this. He's spent the past 4 decades just living for you all. And boy, that would be, I can't imagine kind of relinquishing any of that. And then here I am awkwardly stumbling toward that role, making sure our bases are covered, whatever. He's just such a personality. But we are both extremely passionate, and, that does mean that sometimes it's probably best to walk away. The thing about our relationship is, I think he's the best dad there could be. He's also absolutely made sure that he says he's my dad and not my friend. Now, that's a little bit of bullcrap. He's my very best friend. But he means he's never going to let up on me. And I mean, boy, he never lets up on me. I've got it way harder than just about all of you as far as needing to keep digging deep. But like I said, I wouldn't have it any other way. If I had my way, there wouldn't be a day where I needed to be in charge because it'd just be him. Even where he is in life, boy, he is my strength mentally, physically, and everything in between for sure.
So you've mentioned this chain ring a couple of times in the show. This is look, we don't like to focus on failure or Leadville withdrawals, but there's something going on there. What happened to a folded chain ring?
Oh, man, this is painful memories, Hottie. I probably wasn't in the best relationship, and that was probably draining on me a little bit. And I probably didn't train a little bit, and that was probably draining on me a little bit. And Eldon and I were single speeding, and I definitely had the single speed chip on my shoulder about how damn tough I am, and I don't need to do anything. We're coming across the dam outbound. Or not across to the dam outbound. We're going up the county road, almost to where you can take that right into neighborhoods. And I mean, my leg swings over fast. I feel my chain drop. I look down and my chain ring is just folded over. And now this is important today because everybody's running a 1x. So, this can happen to you, but what happened? I thought I'd futz around with my bike and I put a sweet new chain ring on there the night before the race. And, I thought I tightened those bolts down. I obviously didn't. And to make it worse, I think it was Sterling, or I'm pretty sure it was Sterling. Somebody in 2007 came up to me at the awards and they said, what happened to you last year? And I said, I folded that chain ring and bolts backed out. And he opened his hand and he had a short chain ring bolt from a single speed in his hand. And I just wanted to cry. He said, I got a flat there this year. So, that thing, I got it on my mantle downstairs to remind me of that day. Look, I'd love to say this is a good lesson for everybody too, maybe, of how not to do it. Look, it's another difference between my dad and I is I want to quit all the time. And I mean, when that happened, I was kind of excited. I got to run my bike to Twin Lakes and I thought I'd be done. Well, I ran my bike to Twin Lakes and all these people recognized me and they said, well, we can't help you fix the chain ring, but here's a bike. Take the front ring off it. And I got to do that. And I started trying to ride up the climb to Columbine. And I don't know what the chain line was off or something. It like my chain got damaged and it just kept eating the chain. And then I did want to get it done because I'd spent so much time and I did the walk of shame back into the dam.
So what's your best memory of racing this race? I think that's probably one of your worst. What's your best?
My best memory of this race is being on the starting line after I finish. It's just the last 2 hours of the bike race and the running race are magic hour. That's where you see everybody's dreams come to fruition. And that's just the coolest thing in the world. You did ask earlier kind of how it's changed for me in the race. I had this same feeling last year differently. I would say last year also during the race, it just dawned on me everybody liked the corrals. I don't know if I did because I started in red. And by the time I got to St. Kevin's, I'd been passed by 2 corrals. I just don't generate watts. And it kind of realized I was going to race a little different. And I was still trying to be a sub-9 guy, but, I was being a little more reserved. And it was really cool to be out there with everybody on the pipeline and all the climbs and stuff and really take that in, less worried about my race, less worried about where I'm going to end up. And we're just like, gee, isn't this cool being out here with everybody and just getting to experience that.
Just soaking it in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really changed for me. And that's really just seeing everybody else's success out there starting to be way more of a highlight than my own race.
That's not too different from one of my bright memories from this race. Of course, having done it as many times as I have, some of it starts to blend together. But there was one year where for Cycling News, I had contracted to talk to people as I rode the race. And I had a little, back then it was an actual mini tape recorder that I just kept sticking under my bib shorts leg. And I would just take it out and talk to people for half a minute or a minute, however long they would tolerate me, saying, what are you doing? Why are you here? What is this race like? And I talked to, I would say probably 20 people, and wrote a story about, the people on the course of the Leadville 100. And I expected it to be a good story. I didn't expect it to be like one of the favorite races I ever did by just going out there and hearing about what people are hoping for, what they were striving for, what brought them there. It was pretty awesome. You're and my good friend Ricky McDonald, he and I recorded him as he and I rode up Columbine together. I mean, that's a pretty iconic moment, riding with, this really well-known, really well-loved guy on this extremely well-known, well-loved course, at the iconic moment. It was pretty amazing doing that. I think it's worth encouraging folks. If obviously a lot of this race, we're all racing a clock, but some of us are more just hoping to finish at a certain time. I don't think you can go wrong in this race saying, hey, how are you doing? What are you doing out here? How are you doing? What is your day going like? Are you glad? Are you dying? Asking questions about other folks race. It is, I would say none of us are closer to their actual tribe than when racing the Leadville 100, right? It's if something brought you to this point, you got something in common with everyone else. So it's 1,600 other people.
Absolutely, you do. And yeah, we say we're a family, and we want you to try us on that. And that includes the race family itself, just like Eldon's saying. We're in it together. Unless you're out there, going for the Grand Prix, you're not going to have anything anybody else doesn't except maybe a gold pan. And, you actually have a lot more pride in that gold pan if you help somebody along the way and you still got that gold pan. So.
Now, you've done the run how many times, Cole? How many times have you done the run?
I've finished the run 4 times. I've started at 5.
I don't think we want to ask you which is better because they're both great, right? But which is better for Cole Chlouber?
Well, for me, hands down, it's the run. And I can tell you why.
You're on the wrong podcast.
Sorry, Eldon.
No, continue, please.
Yeah, I know. But the thing about it is it's simple for me. I'm much more of a cyclist. I was a runner when we started the run. My dad had done the run. There were these other legacies, and they would always try the run. One girl tried it when she was 18, and that's how we had a 21-year-old restriction, because we thought we screwed her up pretty bad when she didn't make it. And so when I turned 21, like I said, I tried. I failed miserably, had nothing to do being out there. But I found myself, for me, my journey, I found myself on the bike finding success. And then I found that I could do the 100 on the bike. But for me, I still was trying to achieve what my dad had done, and it wasn't there. And then I'd kind of come into like 24-hour mountain bike racing and stuff, but that didn't really count in my book for me because I could sleep through the night. There wasn't a mileage you had to do or something. So to say it's the most important is just because finally that moment came when I was 36 that I put that to bed. But the bike, has been every bit life-changing for me, I guess. It just didn't have that impact because I had fallen short of that goal, and it took so long to get back to that goal. That's what the difference is for me. I think for a lot of these bikers, it absolutely has that same effect. I really had, talking about Ricky, God, that was his time for me. I really remember in the bike because he's so damn fast, and here he is quite a few years longer than me in life. And he's going to break 9 this year that I'm finally on a geared bike and I got a shot at 9. And we're both going down Columbine. And I remember I just wouldn't pass him. And finally he looked back at me and he said, Cole, I descend like and I'm not going to repeat it here. And he said, you need to go around me. And I mean, by God, that was almost like being with my dad and taking that torch too, right? I was just like, oh crap, I guess I got to pass Ricky. And boy, that just really has lived with me. I think he still kicked my butt by the end of that race, but I had to go around him on Columbine.
Yeah. Amazing guy, Ricky McDonald, man. So what's your fastest time on the mountain bike, by the way? I don't think we've asked that.
I think it's 8:20 or 8:24. I think it's 8:20.
Nice. So besides tightening your chainring bolts or not changing a chainring before race day, give us Cole Chlouber's top 2 tips for the Trail 100 mountain bike race. They can be from anything. It can be, obviously, they can be bike related, whatever you think. But what is the 1 or 2 top things every mountain biker in the Trail 100 should know about?
Absolutely, they should all carry a coat, because you can go up there and that weather can change in a heartbeat. And I mean, my stories from that are from, thinking Bahram's going to get hypothermia finishing a race to having the runners laid out on Hope Pass flat as a sheet because sheets of lightning are going over their head. Absolutely too many people think they are faster than the weather, and they just are not. The biggest thing people should know beyond that, boy, I don't know. Like, I want to go back to this whole mental thing. I mean, you guys are better at the advice other than maybe the coach, just because I've been dumb and caught out there too much. But the biggest thing people should know is that they believed in themselves enough to get themselves out there, and they're there. So in that moment, believe in what got you there, and by all means, don't let that go. Like I said, I truly do want to quit way too much, and I don't understand that. And my dad and I are very different in that way too. He never wants to quit. You're here for a reason. Leadville found you for a reason. You dug deep enough to get into the application process. You do have an idea. Like, you make that happen. And like Eldon's saying, talk to people. That can help you too, ask them something good, or, get them to tell them you're struggling. And maybe they're going to give you good advice. Just, that's really it, is like, you're here. Let's do this. Let's get through this together.
Cole, it is always great talking with you. Thanks so much for being on the show, and good luck at the race.
Well, it has truly been a pleasure. Like I said, you guys are going to be on mine soon. I got to make that one happen. This has been too long in the making. You all are so much fun and do so much for our series, and I just can't thank you enough for having me on.
Again, thanks to Cole Chlouber for being our guest. If you'd like to hear more Leadville stories and info, Cole has a podcast too. It is more wide-ranging than this one in that it covers all of the races, running and cycling, and it is called Grits, Guts, and Determination.
We hope you caught our interviews with Dr. Kevin Sprouse on hydration and cramps. Dr. Sprouse works with the EF education team, and he's a resource used by our friends at The Feed. As part of our hydration talk, Dr. Sprouse talked a lot about sodium and the importance of knowing how much you are losing and getting back in.
The Feed understands this need too, which is why they stock several products that help replace the sodium you lose. Remember, the first thing you want to do is calculate your loss, because that loss can widely vary athlete to athlete. Then once you get your number, go to The Feed and start targeting sodium replacement products.
Yeah, The Feed has a few highlighted products you might want to check out. First, Scratch Labs Hyperhydration has 1720 milligrams of sodium per serving. The Right Stuff, developed by NASA, has 1780 milligrams of sodium. And if your sodium needs match those servings, great. If not, adjust as needed. Both products are meant to be mixed in your bottles.
Every human being needs to hydrate and needs a little salt. But if you are a human being that sweats a lot, and we are guessing as a Leadville racer you do, then more than a little salt is probably what you're going to need. So get your sodium losses checked and get over to The Feed and find something that will help you replace those losses.
Yep. And you can claim your $80 annual credit at thefeed.com/Leadville. Make sure you register your email and verify your phone number, and then you can start spending your Feed credit of $20 right away.
All right, let's wrap this episode. Again, thanks to Cole Chlouber for coming on and sharing his stories. Fatty and I are on social media, always sharing stories, that is. On Twitter, it's at Fat Cyclist, and on Instagram, I am at Michael Houghton. Of course, we are both on the Facebook Leadville 100 Mountain Bike Participants page, and the conversations are really lighting up there right now, so jump in, join. You're going to find a lot of new and relevant info on those pages, on that page, I should say. The conversation is also going on our Slack channel. We love it. So if you want a deeper, more personal discussion, maybe with Fatty, who loves responding, find our Slack channel. Where's that thing, Fatty? I don't think I wrote it down here.
All you got to do is go to leadville.fm/Slack and get a link to it there. So if you like this show, go wherever you listen and give us a 5-star rating, write us a review, and to see all the ways you can find the show, go to leadville.fm. And you know what? If you like this podcast, we're going to be recording an episode live at the Leadville 100 Expo, Thursday, August 11th, the same day as our group ride, but at 5 p.m. So you'll have a chance to go back, get cleaned up, get something to eat, put your feet up for a bit, and then come right over to the expo, join us, and watch Hadi and me make some podcast sausage.
Make some podcast sausage. Love it. It's not pretty, but we get the job done. We've hit the big time, haven't we? With live shows and everything, right? Just promise us, riders, you won't overdo it, right? Do our little ride, hang out a little bit, but get home as fast as you can. Otherwise, good luck in your riding, racing, and recovery. Thanks for listening. We'll see you at the group ride, the expo, and of course, the starting line.